large amount of the membership has been involved in intelligence. And then one of the most disturbing things is that the family groups have been involved in drug running since the early 1800s.
Drug running?
And it seemed, yes. The founder of Skull and Bones was William Huntington Russell. And his family business was a Russell and Company, which was the America's largest opium smuggler, the third largest in the world.
Wow. Chris Milligan, unfortunately, we are out of time. We're going to have to leave it at that fascinating subject, the author of a book on Skull and Bones. Thank you so much.
So all those people, they're all Wall Street bankers in the intelligence agencies. The CIA helped to create Mossad and the State of Israel. I mean, when you look at it, I was watching a documentary on the history of the Mossad this morning, and they say that in their documentary about how Allen Dulles had such a part in creating all this stuff.
By the end of World War II, Jews throughout the world considered Palestine their homeland. But Palestine was then ruled by the British under a United Nations mandate that permitted only a trickle of refugees in. Harrow was influenced by post-war American intelligence, in particular the 1947 formation of the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. This led to the creation of Israel's Central Institute for Intelligence and Special Duties, or Mossad, which replaced the Foreign Ministry's political department. Harrow was appointed as its head in September 1952. The Mossad became synonymous with Israeli intelligence. Prime Minister Ben-Gurion promptly increased the Mossad's budget tenfold.
So when you understand those characters and you have more than a fourth grade history education on these things, because they don't teach you this stuff in school. You have to go out and read a lot of books, and they're not easy books to get because they're not going to sell them to you at Barnes & Noble in the store. But they're gettable.
To look at Brzezinski's tight relationship with Barack Obama.
That's my point. Thank you.
Which is, who are some of the people advising Barack Obama? In this case, you have someone like former Carter National Security Advisor Brzezinski, who is much closer to Obama and his campaign than is being led on.
Thank you.
Now, and everybody thinks Barack Obama is the second coming of Christ.
Oh, he could be, of some antichrist variety, sure. Because, his other backer is Skadden Arps, which is the largest law firm in America, who defended Iran-Contra drugs for arms smugglers, who defended BCCI money laundering criminals, who defends the airlines from the victims' families in 9/11, right? Spitzer and his wife worked for Skadden Arps. When you start connecting all these dots, like I did in Project Constellation, so people could see the big picture, when you look at the sky, there's all these stars, and it's just so hard to comprehend. But when you start connecting a few of them and making them into characters where you can understand the story and filling in the blanks and connecting the dots, you can see the big picture. And it's really much more interesting than staring at a bunch of stuff that you don't understand every day.
Exactly. So listeners, get over to Richard's site too, 8thestate.com. Of course, there's always a live link to that in today's show. What do you think about the dangers? I mean, I'm sure at least I hope you got to see Dennis Kucinich present those 35 counts of impeachment against George Bush.
That President George W. Bush be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, and that the following articles of impeachment be exhibited to the United States Senate. Articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives of the United States of America in the name of itself and of the people of the United States of America in maintenance and support of its impeachment against President George W. Bush for high crimes and misdemeanors. In his conduct while President of the United States, George W. Bush, in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has committed the following abuses of power. Article 1, creating a secret propaganda campaign to manufacture a false case for war against Iraq. In his conduct while President of the United States, George W. Bush, in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of its constitutional duty under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has both personally and acting through his agents and subordinates, together with the Vice President, illegally spent public dollars on a secret propaganda campaign to manufacture a false cause for war against Iraq. The Department of Defense has engaged in a years-long secret domestic propaganda campaign to promote the...
Gentlemen will suspend. The House will come to order. Please proceed.
The Department of Defense has engaged in a years-long secret domestic propaganda campaign to promote the invasion and the occupation of Iraq. The secret program was defended by the White House press secretary. The group included Karl Rove, I. Lewis Libby, Condoleezza Rice, Karen Hughes, Mary Matlin, Stephen Hadley, Nicholas E. Callio, and James R. Wilkinson. The White House Iraq Group, or WIG, produced white papers detailing so-called intelligence of Iraq's nuclear threat that later proved to be false. The WIG's white paper provided, quote, gripping images and stories, unquote, and used, quote, literary license, unquote, with intelligence. The White House Iraq Group's white papers were written at the same time and by the same people as speeches and talking points prepared for President Bush and some of his top officials.
The House of Representatives voted to send an impeachment resolution against President Bush to committee, where it will die. Congressman Dennis Kucinich introduced 35 articles of impeachment this week, most of the resolution focusing on the Iraq War, but they also charged President Bush with illegally detaining both U.S. citizens and foreign captives, a charge upheld by the Supreme Court, as you saw earlier, condoning torture, mishandling the response to Hurricane Katrina, and on and on and on. But Congress doesn't want to hear it. They voted largely along party lines, 255-166, to send the resolution to the House Judiciary Committee, which is exactly what happened to Kucinich's impeachment articles against Vice President Cheney last year. Congress sent that resolution to the same committee last November. It is still there. Nothing has been done. Nothing will be done. Congress continues to refuse to exercise its constitutional responsibility, which is oversight of the executive branch of our government. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi long ago said impeachment is off the table. This is a joke. We have a president who has abused the power of his office over and over and over again. It's what got the Democrats elected to the majority in Congress in 2006. Now it's election time again, and every member of the House is up for re-election in November. The Democrats, no doubt, are worried what it will look like to many voters if they spend their time on impeachment. To hell with what's right or wrong, what will it look like? This is why Republicans voted yesterday to bring Kucinich's resolution up for debate immediately, trying to make the Democrats look silly for focusing on this instead of gas prices, the economy, etc. It boggles my mind. Anyway, here's the question. What does it mean when Congress refuses to even consider 35 articles of impeachment against President Bush?
And now saying that, he might consider dialogue with Iran, and perhaps he rushed into and used the wrong wording with Iraq. Do you think he's trying to buy his way out of getting impeached or try to save himself at the last minute?
I think they're definitely trying to buy themselves out of being impeached. Those guys are caught. They know they're caught. They're about to be amputated by the people who sponsored them, and they're about to be, a public sacrifice, if you will, throwing a bone to the dog that is the American people, right? Because we're getting angry. We're starting to realize, and they think if they cut that off and sacrifice those few people that will be satiated, when really, as soon as people line up against Bush and company, those are the same people that put them there and supported them in the first place. Like, for instance, Jay Rockefeller on the Iraq Intel Commission and all that sort of stuff. Those guys play good cop, but really they're with the bad cops, right? They act like, it's the same thing with James Baker doing the Iraq study group, right? And coming back and making these recommendations. Well, James Baker III is the Bush family consigliere, okay? He's the one that dreamt this all up. He's the one that ran Bush Sr.'s campaign for president.
With James A. Baker heading the Iraq study group, the Evening News thought we should do a piece tonight to tell you who he is. Now, I covered Baker when he was the Secretary of State in Bush 41's administration. That would be George H.W. Bush. Went all over the world with him when he was building the coalition for the first Gulf War.